Good morning, everyone. This is Soul Wisdom Wednesday, and I wanted to know from you, are you postponing joy? So what does that mean? So I want to go back years ago. I don't even know. I think I was living in Winston-Salem at that time, but it was so long ago. I can't remember exactly when this happened. But I was in kind of a heavy time. I think I was still working at a medical center, not very happy in my job. I was just kind of going through the motions of life, really. And I was in my car and I happened to come up to the stoplight, and I was right behind this car that had this really pretty purple bumper sticker that said, "Don't postpone joy." And that has stuck with me ever since. I just remember kind of rearing back in my seat going, wow, okay, I really am not enjoying life much right now. And so why am I putting off joy when there's lots of little things in every day that we can enjoy? And, I had a conversation with a client a few weeks ago about joy and how she just doesn't feel like she's had any. And she's had a couple of very significant losses over the last year and all this other stuff happening. And she said she just doesn't have joy. She doesn't feel joy. And yet I challenged that a little bit because of the fact that I bring my dog to work and she loves my dog. She loves to see my dog. And so it brings her joy, even though she didn't define it as joy. And so when she was talking about the fact that she doesn't have joy, and I kind of let her go on for a while. And then I said, "What do you feel when you see Emmy?" And she kind of looked back and she's like, "Well, I just love seeing her. I just really enjoy seeing her." And I pointed out, she said, "Enjoy." But I also had to help her see that her definition of joy was that we were supposed to have this huge experience of joy all the time, rather than looking for those teeny tiny little pieces of joy that really can infuse our lives with greatness, with enrichment. And so the next time she came in, she said, "I have to redefine. I really have to rethink what I told you, because there are little things." We talked about the hummingbirds. She loves watching the hummingbirds. We talked about the other little things in her yard, and she's now retired, so she's got some time to really kind of play around in her household. I have another client who just spoke with the other day. Same thing, is that, it was one of those things where I think we forget to look for joy. We forget that there is joy in every little thing. Even in the worst of our times, we can find joy. And, I years ago, probably 20, 25 years ago, I read Viktor Frankl's book, The Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was a concentration camp survivor. He was really had to have been an amazing man, but he wrote this book, The Man's Search for Meaning, about his experience and how he not only got through his experience in the concentration camp, but then also how he looks for life in his day-to-day living. So he looks for meaning. He looks to kind of put meaning to things, which really is about joy. How do we extract some of these things that can enrich our lives at the time where we are feeling the worst? Because that's what keeps us going. And that's really what Viktor Frankl spoke about, was that's what kept him going, was that he would look for the things that helped kind of bring some of that life back to him. And I just think that's so important because, and I'm just going to say this personally, the last several months have just been such a grind, so busy, so just intense with all of the things that I'm doing. And getting into this new office space has been really wonderful, but it's been a lot of work. I've been here pretty much every weekend, the last 3 weekends since we moved in, trying to get things set. Last weekend I built this huge storage cabinet for our business office, and so it's not that I was postponing joy, because my motto is to work hard and play hard. But I also realized this weekend that I wasn't noticing the little joyful things that I used to notice, that kind of have been so muffled by the human condition that I wasn't able to keep up with it. And I think it's a beautiful thing when we can stop and go, wow, that is so cool, or so wonderful, or wow, that's really, enriching whatever, darkness that I had at any given time. So what was fun this weekend is I worked in my yard a little bit, and I started remembering to look around, because I have all these different little areas of my yard where I have these little figurines, where I have these little lights, or I have these, I have a little pagoda, I've got a Buddha, I've got all these different kinds of things there that are set up so that wherever I look, I can find joy. But I was forgetting to look at them. So what I'm trying to encourage you to do today is step out of the human condition long enough to see the things that bring you joy that you have not been watching or have not been seeing. You know, we can look, but we may not be seeing. And I think it's really important to step back and really see what it is that can bring us joy. Because I think it's one of those things where we really cannot postpone it if we are going to survive this human condition thing. Because as I've said many times, this human condition thing can be really, really hard. But we have to remember that the soul's condition, the soul's state of being, the most natural state of being is of joy and contentment. So our soul, once we tap into joy, we tap into that soul space. We tap into what it is that is the deepest level of us. And that is what sustains us. So we have to remember that we cannot postpone joy, but we have to look for it. We have to pay attention to it. We have to notice the things that are around us that bring us those kinds of infusions of that joy-filled living. So I wanted to kind of put that out there to you today and kind of question and challenge you. Are you postponing your own joy, even in the midst of difficult times? Because we can get past that. So speaking of getting past that, we are right at the upswing of when Mercury is going to go into retrograde. Mercury will go into retrograde on the 8th of July, and I always give it 2 to 3 weeks before, and it's starting to have effects. There's already computer issues happening. There's some communication issues happening. There's people feeling that already. And we're right at the beginning of that upswing for before it starts, and then we'll have that sort of 3 weeks of Mercury being in retrograde, and then the 3 weeks afterwards. So if you don't know what Mercury in retrograde is, just Google and you'll understand that there are communication problems and mood issues, and our old stuff comes up very much to the present. And I'm very glad I moved into this place in between Mercury in retrograde, so I didn't have to deal with that too. But as I'm talking about remembering joy and remembering to put it in your day, I think this is a perfect time to remind you also that Mercury is coming into retrograde pretty soon. And so that's going to stir up a bunch of stuff. And I think it's going to be important to look for that joy in the midst of those 3 weeks. So hope you have a wonderful day. Go to www.Dr.KatherineT.Kelly.com. As soon as this place gets settled, we're almost there. Then you're going to start seeing more about classes and workshops here and online classes and workshops. I also have another Continuing Ed workshop coming up in September for healthcare providers. And that one is called The Shifting Sands of Spirituality. And that is about how to work with your patients and clients as their belief systems are shifting. So hope you have a wonderful day, and I would love to hear your comments about how you infuse joy into your life. Have a fabulous day.